Okay, well, so Pat, Pat wrote me an email at 4:30 in the morning and Rachel an email and said she's resigning. So I think we're okay though, right? We're doing okay. We're doing really well here. I think we're moving forward. So I will say that one thing that we might think about is whether it would be more legitimate. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure I'm fine. But whether it's more legitimate to have like a citizen, a plain old citizen, or a steering, I mean, I'm fine to run meetings or do whatever, but to have one of you guys maybe be the chair, even though we're all going to be working together, and I'm happy to do whatever I need to do. So I'll let you mush that around in your heads a little bit. Um, if there's somebody that might be willing to be the new chair, like, I don't know, Shara or somebody like that. But like we can sort of make some decisions about that at the end, but I just wanted to let you know that she had resigned. So the second thing on the agenda is the Karen Brinson Bell's presentation a couple of weeks ago or a week ago. So, did anybody get anything? What did you guys, who went and what did you think?
I wasn't able to go, and I hate that.
So if you do want to listen, you can. I think Rachel, did you post it on the website?
It's on our YouTube page. I can send out the link again.
Oh, that'd be lovely. Yeah, she mailed it, but I'm sure you guys, everybody gets like an overwhelming amount of email.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I know it's crazy for me, right? Um,
You're doing well.
so anybody else go?
I wasn't able to go. I did go through the slides before this meeting, but
Good.
I bet there was like a lot in the Q&A that I should probably go back and review. But if you have takeaways on like needs as it pertains to our committee, I'd love to hear those.
So I had asked her, I asked her a question about like what, and I think this came out of left field for her, so I should have probably warned her that I was going to ask this. Because it's not something that she's thinking about every day, but like what could we do as a committee? What sort of policy did we think that North Carolina should be working on to address the issue of election violence against election officials? And so, like I said, I think this hit her out of left field. She had said, though, it may be, that what we need to do is change some of the things that are currently misdemeanors into felonies. Um, so but didn't there's I think a lot more in the way of detail that we could um do. We just have to figure out. So Darlene had mentioned that she might or might not be able to get to the writing about the election violence stuff, but there's a variety of different things that we could suggest, which I can show you guys some of the things. I don't think.
One of the things
Okay.
that was different this year in the primary in Wake County, there was an official that was different. It wasn't your coordinator coming by. It was someone specific to whether or not there were any problems and violence or anything that we were coming across. This person was apparently set up just to deal with that, and that was something very new that Wake County had implemented. Just for what it's worth.
So was it a security person or wasn't a police officer?
Wasn't a police officer. But I can tell you, I've actually, because I have been in schools primarily, I've had conversations with the principals. See, number one, is there a school resource officer on the grounds? If not, whether or not any of them are armed. Because I feel like as a chief judge, that's something I want to know. should we have an
Do you
emergency.
want them to be armed or do you not want them to be armed? Because that's a tough one, I think.
I think there's arguments for both sides.
Yeah.
I think for me, it would matter more about their judgment and their training.
There you go. Yeah, I gotcha. That makes a lot of sense.
So this is Leslie, and in Guilford County, they actually set up a task force. So on the day of the election, Charlie told us that he had people on call, like the sheriff and some other folks who were actually, and then I guess a couple of officers were on call. So I'm curious if what Shira's saying and then what Guilford County is doing are some of the approaches that folks are taking. I think we need to definitely figure that out and then maybe make some recommendations. I think it helps us as election officials to feel secure, to know that there's someone we can call.
Exactly. And that's one part of what's driving people away from wanting to be election officials. That some of them are not feeling safe. And then like the video you sent out, Martha, I mean, that's exactly what I'm seeing on the ground. It's either the information and training is overwhelming to a lot of people, or they're not feeling safe in the environment that currently exists.
So maybe we need to find out, do we have people that are security people at the polling places? I just can't imagine having them at every single one. But we'd also need to find out about the school resource officers. So maybe these are Karen questions that I could ask, or somebody could ask.
I think that I believe this was a couple of elections ago when I was asking this question, and it seemed to me that the middle schools and the high schools have these resource officers, but the elementary schools not so much. And where I've been, well, I was at a middle school and I did see a resource officer, but I've been at a middle school as the precinct for a good 2 to 3 years now, and there's not one there. So, and there's no way, I don't think the system is set up so that they can put an officer at every one of these precincts, not in.
I just don't see, I'm trying to imagine 195 of them on election day in North Carolina, Mecklenburg County.
Yeah, same thing.
I mean, that's just, I don't know, how many precincts are there in Wake? A ton.
All right.
Right.
So,
So that would be nice to know. So we need to find out more about the security at the polling places. So that might be, but let's go back. Well, I mean, we can go ahead and talk about this, I guess. We don't really have someone that was going to give the policy possibilities or write a problem statement for election violence. But I think that we're going to have more for that when we hear from the Princeton Bridging Divide speaker, Tom, and I've forgotten his last name. But so Princeton has, they're studying violence and other issues across the country, but they have people placed in, I think, something like 6 or 9 states that they think are in a special problem. And so North Carolina is one of the states where they're placing people to monitor sort of whatever election violence. So they have a data set of different kinds of things that have happened in the various states all over the country, of violent events. So he's going to give a talk to the entire committee about well, I think we wanted him to directly address violence against election officials, but obviously there's some other things. So there was also so there's a there was another newspaper article that I had that I'll send around to the committee that was about election violence. So what I was hoping is that Darlene might have been able to write about election violence, and clearly she didn't have time, and she was very doubtful that she would have time. I might be able to write up something about that though, or if somebody else wants to do it.
Should we be looking or thinking about lobbying the legislature?
So I
Change the
think,
law, I mean, to, you know, there's heightened, you know, what am I trying to say? You can't do violence against a police officer without, I mean,
mhm.
you know, heightened crimes, I guess.
Well, so I would think, and this is just my opinion, you guys are the committee, but I would think it would be nice, it would be ideal if we had some policy things that they should consider. And there are things that other states have passed. And if I can find it, so that's some of the PowerPoint that I gave you all last week had, so there's several interest groups working in this area. The election group is one. Issue 1 is one that our student that Catherine said she worked for last summer. Princeton is working in this area. Bipartisan Policy Center is working in this area, and many of them have come up with suggestions of things that states should do. And so let me see if I have, let me find my PowerPoint. And there are, so my thinking is if we end up with a nice, you know, with our report, we say, you know, this violence against poll workers or, you know, threats against poll workers. And there are some, I have the Bridging Divides data set. There are some, not necessarily in North Carolina. In fact, I just downloaded it today. But there, where did that go? If we had a good report and we could take that to the state legislature, and, you know, it wouldn't have to be like during this time, but after we finish the report and we say, hey, these states have done this, they've done this, they've done this. Thank you, Catherine, for the PowerPoint. Our priorities. Thank you, because I was looking for it and could not find it. So if you look, let me share my screen. So here is the thing that I was saying, safety. Here's what we could do. Can you see this?
Yeah, with my glasses.
It's probably kind of, it looks weird on my screen and I can't, because it's, because it's a Google Doc here. Let me see if I can make it bigger. No, I'm just moving it. So the National Conference of State Legislatures here, oh, we can't link on it, can, oh, yes, we can. The
Well, Martha,
National
you might be able to go into presenter mode or something to make it, because it looks like it's a slide deck. To make that bigger.
Well, it is a slide deck, but it's in Google. So how do I make it in presenter mode?
I thought I saw a little camera, but this is a website, I think, right now, and we're seeing.
Okay, let me go back to the, oh, shoot. Let me stop share. So technology, not my favorite. Okay, let's try and get let me just go on this again. So where do I do it?
I don't see it yet.
There's a camera there. No? Wait, what does that say? Join a call.
Oh. Yeah, there must be a presenter mode, surely, for Google Slides or whatever they're called.
You hit slideshow on the top right. Next to
That?
share.
Oh, okay, now let me share. Teamwork.
Yeah.
All right, so so first here is this is state laws providing protection for election officials in other states. This is some of the states that have passed the laws. This is National League of Cities. They had some ideas about how to do this, protect election officials, and the Bipartisan Policy Center does too. So, for example, let's see, and these are all in here. That's an article about the rise of violence, but now I have to find I'm sorry, guys. Technology is not my friend today.
It's not mine ever.
The Bipartisan Policy Center one, maybe that was Katie's. Oh, no, this is actually an article that my student and I and another professor are trying to replicate with election violence. Let's see. But all of these have like tidbits of things that we could do in North Carolina to protect, to try to like look at other state laws that have been passed. So, I mean, there's a lot of
Yeah.
ideas.
Yeah, I would say let's piggyback on anything that we can use to not reinvent a lot of work for ourselves.
Well, and yeah, because I don't see myself, okay, so here's the National League of Cities one. So I'm not an expert, you know, like I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about how to deal with this, right? But if you look, you can barely see it. Let me see if I can make it bigger. But like, I think, here we go, there we go. So these are just recommendations for local election officials. So in this meeting I was in today of the Election Community Network, which is a national, it's actually started by a former election official in California. And the Princeton Bridging Divides people presented there today, and they talked about de-escalation. And so we could make our recommendations as simple as training should include de-escalation training, right? Because Princeton has some stuff on their webpage about de-escalation training. So Shira, if you had someone who came into your polling place, or Leslie, if you had someone that came into your polling place and they started giving you a hard time, they were showing this Clara framework that's like, first you listen, you know, there's a lot of things that you can do. So the Bipartisan Policy Center, though, had laws that they thought that the state should pass.
I
And
think
so,
it's great. I think this is an adjunct training course that we need to be given as, especially the chief judges. Because I have had a few instances where I've had to just go on gut instinct
yeah,
as to how to de-escalate something. And one of the first things is listening,
yeah.
the biggie. But yeah, we need, especially in today's time, we need this kind of training. And we're not getting it, and I think that's something we can recommend.
So I think that that's something that we can make one of our first things, is that all the well, not all the poll workers, at least the chief judges need de-escalation training.
Yeah.
I mean, the last one is something like, the last point was just so compelling. It's like the person, if they're not listening to you as the authority in the polling place, you have to say, you cannot threaten people in this polling place, right, with violence. You need to leave. And if they don't listen to that, then you have to be able to find someone who can help you deal with the situation, right? And so we need to give people tools. I mean, I don't know how often this happens. I mean, Sarah last week, or when we met last week, was saying, you know, that a lot of election violence really hadn't happened in Brunswick County. But if it's possible, we need to be able to do something about it. So I'll tell you what, I'll write up something about election violence and send it around to you guys. And then we can, you know, go from there. And you can just tell me what you think. So let me go back to my agenda here. So the other thing, let me go back to Karen Bell's discussion, and I'll tell you, what I went ahead and put on the agenda here is something that struck me from both our last week's meeting and then from some of the comments that Karen made, is that, so Sarah in Brunswick County, we were talking about SARA training, which is the national training. Auburn University is the curricular faculty for the election centers training of election officials all over the country. So people go to their meetings and get training. She said that it's not like most counties have the money to send their people to these advanced training sessions. And that made me also wonder, then, do most counties have money for whatever advanced training they might want to have, or do they have enough money? And so I think we had said that that's not one of our priorities, but I think if we can tack that on to the end of whatever it is we do, I mean, clearly we're all very passionate about poll workers and even some of the career things. So I think that we may want to bring that up at the end if we have time, because so in North Carolina, counties decide, county commissions make decisions on how much the election boards get to run their elections. Now, usually, the county manager is going to listen to what the election director says. At least you hope. But, any political thing could affect whether or not they get enough money. So I'll just throw this out, that Jennifer had mentioned this early in one of our meetings, that there's a Clean Water Act fund in North Carolina. And is it possible that we could do something like that, that maybe is funded by the state legislature, that's a fund to give counties extra funding for things when they need it? And I think that might be an interesting thing to at least throw out there or suggest.
I think that's a great idea. I think my husband may know something about that too. But if we could do something that could get more training to the right people in these underfunded areas, that would be a wonderful goal of
I
this
think so.
committee. But that's something
So-
needed.
So get training to the underfunded areas like that. Okay. So we'll two underfunded areas. Okay. All right. Next up. Then, okay.
Before we go to the next one, I just found this UNC election training. I don't know if this is something that people are well aware of or not, but it looks like that could be of interest to some of the counties.
So they do a training, I think most years. And so Sarah had mentioned that they were here at this one. But she also said that the election directors, so they did this in Concord a couple of weekends ago, right? Does anybody remember what she had said about it? But we should put this in our report, that this is a training that they do.
And
Yeah,
how-
I'd be interested to know, the Sarah one, what are the advantages to that and traveling out of state versus any of the universities here that might be Sarah certified that also are offering trainings? Easier to get.
So the School of Government at Chapel Hill is the only one that offers it. They don't, nobody else does it. And this has been, they've had someone that's this is something that Chapel Hill's done for a long time, and Karen had told me there's a guy named Bob Joyce, a lawyer named Bob Joyce there, who's like a super sorry, this is gonna sound informal, but a super duper expert on elections. And he's written a lot, and he's been one that has organized quite a lot of the state board trainings. So the question is, if you wanted something that was beyond what the state board was giving you, that's hard for them to go to, I guess. So it's a CIRA training. Do they need to do it? I don't know. I guess that's a question.
How feasible would it be to share the Wake County training materials with some of these more rural counties so that they can piggyback on systems that seem to be working? Is that going to be possible?
So is there a way that we can like take the work that like Wake County is doing and put it somewhere where everybody could share in it? Because all of that material Shara spoke to the Election Access Committee about her experiences as a poll worker, since she's been doing it for, I don't know, 32 years.
Well,
And we were asking her about like access issues in her county. This is the Voter Access and Registration Committee. And those were good materials. Maybe we should encourage some sort of sharing system.
they're very comprehensive and they're constantly being updated.
Well, can you imagine having to, like, if you're the only person in the office, to have to come up with those systems that Wake County has already done? Like, there's like a flow chart that they follow in
Yeah.
these materials.
Oh, yeah. It's keep it simple, stupid. And to the extent that some of these poll workers are feeling like they don't have the mental capacity to do some of this work, those flow charts go a long way tamping down the anxiety that comes with some of these areas that these poll workers are working in. And it's taken years to get to that point for Wake County, and they're continually updating, and they're updating based on poll worker feedback at the end of each election. So,
Well, and if others could benefit from that,
yeah.
so some sort of system where they're sharing their materials would be really, really, really good, I think.
Yeah.
I was wondering, is there a place that local election officials would typically go to look for training materials, like the state board's website or something like that? That might be a good question for Julie.
Yeah, we need to have a repository where people the people that need to have this information can go get it so that they can create their own systems.
They do have they have a site. The state board has like a website where they put information up. So I don't know, I don't think it would be much of a stretch for some of these more resourced counties to place stuff on there. So they have like an FTP site. And that's where, like we get, voter registration lists and the like. Is there a place where election officials share materials? But wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, that's a way
Yeah.
of evening the playing field, so to speak.
Well, and it's not even like a playing field, right? It's like we're all in this together in North Carolina. Like you would think that when Wake does something that's extremely cool, then everybody else should share in it. Or if MEC does something that's extremely cool, that everybody else should share in it. That just makes logical sense.
It does, and you get better systems because of it.
Yeah, it's funny.
So-
I was looking on the EAC's website for another committee, and they have a best practices library there, and there was Wake County. Like several of Wake County's programs, I think it was around poll workers, were there. So that's the kind of thing it'd be great to have in the state as well for our local election officials. Sort of a best practices library or a toolkit or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, Gary Sims, he was still the election director in Wake County, said that other states were looking at Wake County as a best practices system. So I'm glad they gave us permission to share.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's a bunch of different materials that we have from Sharon. That was awesome. So thank you for that.
And let me just say
Um,
can I just say for the record that I did not know any of this that you all are stating. I didn't know that Wake County is considered, a shining star in this. I mean, you just go to your county, you get trained. And so I think for sure there needs to be a way that people are sharing their best practices across counties. Cause I mean, I never knew this, that they have some really good models. And what you're talking about a flow chart is blowing my mind because I've got this big binder. I have to flip pages to figure out like, what do I need to sign next? What do I do? So clearly there are better ways to do it.
Oh, that makes me cringe to think I'd have to do that in an election.
Yeah, no, I have a binder. I have a binder and I went and bought it myself, right? All I had was the papers. And so I actually
you bought your
disconnected
own
it and
binder?
yeah, to like put my stuff in it so that I could, and I even got like the plastic sleeves so that I wouldn't damage them for future.
They give us binders.
So we get materials. And we do get a smaller sort of binder, but then all the materials aren't in it, right? So that's what I'm saying. I got a big one and I combined everything, but whatever you're saying about a flow chart is blowing my mind. So for sure, one of the main recommendations needs to be sharing best practices amongst county election officials.
Trying to see if I have an example. I got this for
Probably. Maybe I could dig that up faster than I could my materials on election violence. Because you had it. Let me see if I can show you guys one of Shara's things, but we have several more things to talk about. So let me make sure that we get to those.
Yeah, those flow charts are golden.
Well, this makes me
See.
think too, like, it sounds like there should be some staff supporting the sharing of best practices. I don't know if that would be with the state board or if it's kind of like an independent position, but it's a lot of work. And if you think about other industries, especially when there's like safety involved and construction or something, there's people that are coordinating training and making sure that the company is up to, guidelines and certifications and all of that. So, I mean, for a little amount of money, somebody to coordinate these best practices, meetings and trainings, I think that could go a long way.
I will say though, that one thing that Karen Bell said was that the state legislature one thing that she reinstituted was having regional helpers. So there's several regions in North Carolina. She didn't have, when the year started or before at the end of the last legislative session, they had funded like 4. And then I think what she said was then they gave her 2 more, but there's like 8 or 9 regions. So she doesn't even have enough, like they are like not even wanting to give her regional helpers to be people to go in and help the election directors that don't have a lot of experience. So that, she has a hard time getting that from the state legislature, but I really like the idea of suggesting a staff member to support the sharing of best practices. That is a really good idea, but boy, that state legislature, someone has got to say something to them because they've got to understand that this isn't just something you throw together. You can't. I mean, it's a big job running the elections and they're just not giving enough money to it, I don't think. So we all want good elections.
Well, and I think that's how you approach it. It's beneficial to everyone to have, fair, safe, and secure elections that, to the extent possible, are run with the best practices type of system.
Right.
And I'm sure there are a lot of people that would love to not have to reinvent the wheel and figure out what works I think it'll go along, these flow charts go a long way to help these poll workers feel a lot more secure in what they're required to do at these stations.
So, let's move on. So career planning. So, actually, Sarah, we need to build a so Sarah wrote, so back up, Croft. We know there's been turnover. So Jason's report said there's been turnover in election officials. And so we have a couple of things that we talked about. And one was like, working on more training for the younger people. And Sarah actually, along with the state, she's the president, Sarah, not as in Sarah, as in the national training, but Sarah Levere actually had some ideas for training that they've been working on. So I'll just show you what she sent me today. And I will just throw in also that somebody, I think it was Leslie, said we needed to have a Google site where we started to work on this document together. So we can probably put this on the North Carolina, our commission Google site and start putting some of these ideas together. And I think that we all need to have some agency to fill in some of these spots, because you guys have great ideas. So what I'm going to try and make happen is us to get this together, and I'll start putting up these ideas and like shaping what the report would look like.
You know,
So go ahead.
just recent experience in Wake County, we had a director that left, but my understanding, he took quite a while, maybe, I think I heard like a year to train his replacement. So that's one way.
Gary Sims has been doing more than a year. He had a plan.
Yeah.
He had a succession plan, Shara. I'm just sure of this. He knew that Olivia was going to take over, and he probably had a regular conversation with her about what she needed to do to be the election director. And more counties, but some counties just probably don't have the capacity.
Well, he's the kind of guy that would be the one with a plan, what I understand. So,
what I want to do for research is actually interview people who have done successful succession planning. And Gary would be one of the first ones that I would talk to, I think, because I think that was, from everybody I've heard from, that was a very successful plan. So she wrote here, she had some initial thoughts. We can put these into the report and shape them. But so she said there's a challenge when experienced director leaves, they take with them institutional knowledge that some coming in will not have. So another challenge is there's not a strong support system for new election directors. No training course on how to administer elections. So my guess is that she's trying to say that the Chapel Hill, the Institute of Government training session is good, but maybe they're not just giving you the how-tos, nitty-gritty details, but more, here are the law changes, like we heard Patrick giving us, right? So he used slides from one of his training sessions, actually the one that was done with Chapel Hill. So they think the Directors Association could create a robust training and certification program in conjunction with university, the UNC School of Government, perhaps. So she says Florida has a robust training program for new supervisors in conjunction with Florida State University with 30+ courses. So I don't want to step on any toes at the School of Government, but I think, you know, I'd be interested in helping with that too. Solution, create a but it sounds like the Directors Association has ideas and we'd want to get from them. The next solution is create a mentorship between seasoned directors and new directors. Great idea. Solution, create user groups for counties with similarities, same equipment, etc. Group counties of similar sizes.
you know, if we can't get Gary Sims to talk to us, maybe we can get Olivia to talk to us.
Or we could, that's a possibility.
If you want me to approach her, I'll be glad to, unless that's something you want to do.
Well, let's think about, okay, so I'm not saying no, because I think it's a great idea. I would love to pick her brain. Right? Obviously, Wake County.
They seem to have a system because I've been here long enough that I've seen now 3 directors. And one came on, one went off, and they didn't miss a beat. So that was telling me that they've got something going on where there's the training, ongoing training, like you said, Gary Sims probably was talking to Olivia far longer than a year.
Sure.
But it's been seamless. For as long as I've been here, it's been very seamless from one director to the next.
Well, so here's the other thing. Okay, so we'll put this into this Google file. So I also want to show you what Leslie came up with. Let me stop share so you can't see my messy email here. So Leslie wrote a full-on document, and I hadn't figured out, I was checking with her to see if I could pass it along. So recall that I'd asked her to put together some poll worker things. She did that and more. So let me share this. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
So she's talking, so I'd ask, and we'll get to you, Greg, in a minute, because Greg was going to write our problem statement, and we have some data that we can talk about in a minute. But I bring this up now because, so she mentions in here the election fellowship program, and she uses it here. This is similar to what Arizona did, and we could get the Arizona people to talk to us about it, because I've got a contact in the office now because of these meetings that I go to. But she says it in the context of poll working. But I think we need to do it also in the context of bringing younger people into the job of being an election director.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we want to put that, we could put this either place in our report, this little bit. I don't know if you can see it, but she said it taught, so in 2023, the Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs issued an executive order to create a group like us. And due to the shortage of election officials, one recommendations was for jurisdictions to create a paid fellowship or internship program that would allow recent college or graduate school students to gain election experience and possibly compete for a job in the jurisdiction's county recorder or elections office upon completion. So it would be for county boards of elections. And if we could create something like that or recommend that somebody do it, I think that would be so good for bringing in election officials.
Would be very helpful. I'm also wondering if we also, what my thinking is, someone like NC State, don't they have a public policy school? You know, there may be some programs being offered that it'd be nice to have a course that deals with a lot of the nuts and bolts of election law. So then it would dovetail right into a fellowship program.
Now that's interesting. So I will tell you that NC State has a policy program. Chapel Hill has a policy program. Charlotte has a policy program. I will also tell you that there has been a national effort from NASPA, which is the National Association of Schools of Public Administration and Policy, I guess is what it is, to start an election program in a lot of different schools. I'm the only faculty member in my department who teaches anything about elections.
There you go.
So we haven't really pushed it at our school, either in our Master of Public Administration program or in our Public Policy PhD, which is an interdisciplinary degree. And the students don't typically, you know, but maybe there's a way that we could. Oh, no, maybe there's a way that we could push that.
Yeah, get
I
some.
think, yeah, it should definitely be a recommendation that, you know, that we start embedding it in the undergraduate curriculum.
Mhm.
I mean, because these are, you know, these students that get these public policy degrees, I mean, they just need other alternatives, right? I mean, sure, they could go into lobbying, they could go into working on, you know, actual campaigns and things like that, you know, and then in policy organizations and stuff. But I mean, I think this could be an option for them to be an election administrator. So I think we should recommend that schools of public policy and governance explore creating classes, curricula, whatever, around election administration.
I am writing that down.
And, you know, still go with the fellowship program, because that's your, one is theoretical, one is on the ground training. And they both would work nicely with one another.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so we'll put this in the document. Put this in the document. I love it. So Rachel can help us create a document, I think, and I can start filling it in, and then I'll share it with you guys and we can start putting things in. So, okay, we got about 10 more minutes. The next thing that we were talking about was poll workers. I loved the passion that you guys had last time around poll workers. It was so cool. So Greg was putting together data, or putting together, and he sent a blurb, and we'll put that in the report. But then he suggested maybe we chat a little bit about what kind of data we have that we should put in it. So I will tell you what I have found. Let me see if I can find the little poll worker data. Well, okay, this is the Election Assistance Commission does, starting in 2004. That's the federal agency that was created by the Help America Vote Act, was the Election Assistance Commission that Greg went to. Has been putting together information. So Greg, I don't know if you want to, you turn off your, let's hear what do you have to say?
Oh, did you, can you share the problem statement? If not, I can find it. Do you have it there?
I do. Give me a second here because I'm having fun with my computer.
I'll race you.
Okay, we'll race.
I'll see. That problem statement. Okay. All right, I think I beat you.
I think you did too. This is lame, isn't it?
Can you see my screen?
Can you guys see it?
Since
Yes.
I'm sharing.
I can see your
Okay.
screen. It is cool.
There you go.
Awesome.
Yeah, there we go. So this is the draft problem statement on poll worker recruitment. And as I got into it, I first had national data. I must have gotten that from the EAC. But then I somewhere along the lines, I came across some North Carolina data. I think it was from you, Martha. And so that was one question I had for you guys in our problem statement. Would it be best to just focus on the North Carolina data? That's kind of where I'm leaning.
Yeah, I would.
But what do y'all think?
I'd do North Carolina.
And it's the same, I think it's the same exact study, just our data from the state. Just the
don't think
same
it's-
question around difficulty or having great difficulty in recruiting polling workers. And in North Carolina, that number is 48%. But if you look at the mid-sized counties, sort of the middle half, I guess, the second and third quartile of counties, they are having more difficulty for whatever reason. So their rates were 52% and 68%, which is one of them is actually above the national average. It's up there.
Well, I think that gets back to a couple of things. I can imagine I would be daunted if I hadn't had the training I had in Wake County, to not even have any flow charts, would be staggering to me. So that could be that could help alleviate part of the problem. And the other part may be I don't know if the rate of pay is the same across the state, or is that done county by county? If county by county, that could be another part of it, even though the pay is not great. And it's really more of a community service that you're doing. It still may have some bearing on it. So as far as the mid-sized counties and rural counties. But I think,
I don't know what the rate of pay is. So who do we ask?
I think it's a county by county decision. Seems like I heard someone say that. It might have been Karen
I bet it was
Bell
Sarah. I bet it was Sarah, if I had to
or
guess.
Sarah. Yeah.
From the meeting last week.
Yeah.
But we should verify that. But I think she did say each county, their commissioners
So
determine.
Well, the county commissioners determine the budget. But my guess would be the counties do make a lot of their own decisions, but this would be, something we could verify with Sarah Livier. So we'll write her an email.
And then one thing I thought that would strengthen the problem statement is to show that this is a increasing problem, which I expect, but I just wanted to know, and I think, Martha, you probably know where I can find data going back to 2004, you mentioned. Is that at the EAC?
Do. So I don't know. Yeah. Well, in fact, I've got a folder I could share with you. I downloaded as many of those studies, so they're very different. Over time, they've gotten better and better and better. So they started doing these, after the 2000 election, and the federal government passed, laws to try and make it so that we had data that we could all recognize, that was similar, it could be used and considered and compared across the country. So that's what the Election Day survey does. So I don't know how you are with data. I have a whole folder full of stuff.
Like
and
an
I have
Excel file or something?
I could show you my folder. I don't know what to do with it. I don't even know how to, you're sharing, right? It's,
I can stop.
so no, well, okay. Let me see. So this is like, how are you with data? Do you do?
I can probably manage. I do a lot of stuff with Excel and in my day job. Yeah.
So, well, my thing was, so this is a file that I started. I grabbed this. This is the one that I sent you. But if you look at, this is my file. So there's like, I downloaded these as Stata files, but I think these early ones are all available in Excel. And if you go to the Election Day survey, which I can send you the link, you can go back or I could share this folder with you. But what I didn't share here was what I don't have here is the code books that go with these. There are code books for most of these, but if you look at like the 2022, you don't necessarily need the code book to understand it. But like they're just, I don't know, I could send you that, but there's just cool data here. and so I guess a question for you is like, there's also data on how many poll workers they have that are under 18, how many poll workers that they have that are between like 18 and 25, and all of the age groups. And you could do a lot of really cool things to map that over time. So I don't know. I guess the question is, would you be more interested? Well, I can share that I'm just so excited by this. I don't even know what to say because this data is so cool and I've never used it. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
if you send me the link to their surveys, I can probably start there and I'll let you know if I want to go to
Perfect.
other things you've downloaded or whatever. But
is this-
I think I can find, and I think this question they ask about difficulty in recruiting has been asked since 2004. I think it's one of their original questions. So that'll be cool to look at it over time.
I'll find you. So, well, here's the survey. So, hold on. Let me see. What do I research? Election administration and voting survey. Okay. So I'm going to put this in the chat.
So this gets into what we've talked about before, how we can help the recruiting process. Looks like the more rural the county, the harder it is to recruit. If I'm reading it correctly.
Yeah, except for in North Carolina, it was interesting. The smallest quartile of counties actually were doing better than the middle. They weren't doing better than the largest, but they were doing better than the middle two quartiles. That was kind of interesting.
So I'll tell you how I figured out the quartiles by just looking at how many registered voters they were and then going, who are the first 25, who are the next 25, right? And so I just organized it by size. But yeah, it's
This is the single area of the time that I've been working with Wake County that I think they are the poorest at.
Oh, they're all poor, I think. I think it's just hard.
It's their process. It's how they've decided to recruit. And this little pad that you put on the registration table and expect someone to really zero in on it at the time they're coming in to get their ATV.
But Sharon, didn't you tell us that they also advertise in the utility bills? Because I thought somebody told me that. It
No,
wasn't
I
you.
didn't. Maybe Sarah. But that's not a bad idea.
Well, I thought so too.
They advertise other things. That's where I learned how, landlord training was in a utility bill.
Also, Martha, I'm sorry, I do have to go. I have a hard stop at 6.
Okay.
So yeah, if you could just email me the link to that stuff, I'll start looking at it.
Well, I will. All right. Yeah. I mean, so the takeaway is that we'll start a Google Doc and I'll send it all to you guys and then take agency, feel like you can put things in and we'll do it together. So I
And then
don't
you
have
asked-
anything else.
I was gonna say,
So-
you asked at the beginning, should we get a person on the committee to be a chair to work with you? I think
Oh, yes, I did.
Sharon and I are both co-directing another commission or committee, so we probably can't, but hopefully somebody can in the group.
Maybe poor Leslie. She's not here now, is she?
Let's sign her.
That'll be
But
a
did you
way-
see how much she wrote there? I'll put
Oh,
it
yeah,
in
that
the
was
doc. I'll
good.
put it in our Google Doc and you will see that she has been, yeah. Okay,
right,
well, I
thanks.
guess
See you guys.
all right, guys,
Bye.
thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.